Story 1. So I love animals. I have 5 back home with my mom, but I'm living in another city because of my grad school, and since I will be traveling a lot once the pandemic ends, I cannot adopt right now. However, me and my partner decided to become foster for an NGO that rescues cats. We'll only have one cat at a time, and our first is a female cat named Smoke. All names are fake. So Smoke is a lovely cat. She is about 1 year, loves to play, cuddle, and is in general an easy animal, even though she has been through so much pregnancy, lived in the streets, etc. Once she had recovered from her neutering surgery, we and the NGO started to put her up for adoption. She is a gray cat, which is rare here. So on her first day, we already had one person interested. The couple, Katie and John, reached out to me, and after chatting for a little bit and asking questions, they asked to meet her. We set up a date, and when they came here, they completely fell in love with her. They already have 4 cats and seem to know much about the challenges of adapting an adult cat to a new environment with other cats as well, so we decided that they were the ones. She goes to her new home on Monday, and everything seems okay as she was getting used to the new owners and was being kept in a separate room. Not even a week goes by and Katie messages me saying that Smoke is being aggressive to her other cats, which are all female, and she wants to return her. I tell her that she probably made the introduction too soon and to separate them again and wait a little longer. She agrees and sends me videos of them, the cats eating together, and overall Smokey seems way more relaxed, so I assume everything is okay. Few days later, she messages me again, saying that she and her husband have been fighting a lot. BC Smoke is always trying to get the other cats, and her cats don't fight back, so they were getting hurt. She says that she is getting worried, and that she would like to return the cat again and begs me to take her back, and not go back to the streets. I sent her a long text about how if she gave her up, I don't know if I can keep her here again, which was true, and that although she may think that it wasn't abandoning the animal, she pretty much was. I also said that 2 weeks is barely time for a stray to adjust, especially with other cats, and that Smokey was already doing fine with their dog. They also have a dog, so she probably wasn't aggressive. She was crying a lot when she told me all of that, but agreed with me once again and kept the cat. This was during the weekend, and on Monday, exactly 2 weeks since they had gotten her, I received another audio of her saying the same thing, and how she was absolutely stressed from the situation. I didn't try to convince her this time since I could see she couldn't handle the situation and just scheduled with her to get the cat back. I talked to my so again, and he agreed to let her stay here. When Katie came, she was bawling her eyes out and saying that she was sorry and couldn't do it anymore. And although I was a bit angry with her for giving up too soon, I was polite and just took Smokey, and the things that she had bought for her, she donated those items. Another week goes by, and surprise, surprise, I receive a text from both her and her husband asking if they could have the cat back because they have been missing her and thought they'd give it another try, this time with a cat expert to guide them through the introductions. Saying I was mad was an understatement. I had a lot to think, so I just told them I'd give them an answer the following day. I spoke to the NGO, and they were also shocked that she would even ask that, and said that they agreed with my decision to not let her have the cat again, and to talk to her since I was the one closer to Katie. So I sat down and wrote a long text detailing the reasons of why I wasn't going to return the cat to them. Basically saying that although I thought they had good intentions, they were clearly not ready to deal with the situation. Plus, I didn't want to risk having Smokey go through this whole thing again to later get returned again. I also told them that they may regret their decision, but unfortunately it's something that they'll have to deal with. I asked her to not contact me again, which she did. BC, I was afraid she was going to be persistent. You guys? She lost it. She immediately went to talk to the NGO, and they tried to tell her as nicely as possible that they weren't going to change their minds, but she wasn't having any of it. Send me a text telling me that I didn't even give the cat a chance, and said I was clearly crazy and cold-hearted. Lol, what? Wanted to put the NGO on blast across social media, and they were afraid of that since they are small and depend on reputation. I thought that Karen was going to end here, but no. She threatened to call the cops and say that she just left the cat with me. BC. She was going on a trip, and I stole it. The audacity of this. B*TCH. I freaked out a bit because I have since deleted our WhatsApp conversation and was trying to recover it. She even contacted her DA friend and told her the same fake story, and her friend spoke directly to the NGO's attorney in defense of Katie, but I have found some screenshots where she was saying she was surrendering the cat to us and the DA apologized and backed off. This all happened yesterday, and I don't think she is going to try to do anything else, but who knows. Moral of the story: never delete your WhatsApp conversations. BC people sometimes be crazy. Story 2. This is my first time posting on Reddit. I've read stories here before, but never made an account or posted anything. I was reminiscing with a few friends, and I suddenly remembered this. I told them about it, and they recommended that I post it on here, as the community would love my story. It's a bit of a long read, but I assure you it's worth it. I'm a 39 years old Caucasian male, and this occurred when I just graduated from college. So when I was about 22. At the time, I was about 6'2" and a decent build. I always was one of the popular kids at school and was never having problems with any sort of bullying. It all started after I graduated. Very suddenly. First, it was all my college friends disconnecting with me. First ignoring me a little here and there to full out avoiding me. Then came the harassment. I'd started a job at a local convenience store, which wasn't very busy, so it was a perfect place to come and harass me. When I say they, I'm referring to a group of guys, all about 1-2 years younger than me and still in college. They were way more muscular than I was, and some even cleared 6'4". So you can imagine them being pretty intimidating to me. At the start, they came in and did minor things that at most just inconvenienced me, such as taking something, bringing it to the counter, then telling me they'd changed their minds and didn't want to buy it. Then coming back with something else and doing the exact thing over and over again until my manager came and kicked them out of the store. Then it became more serious. They started waiting for me outside in the parking lot after my shift ended and started getting physical with me. I tried my best to ignore them, but it was incredibly annoying. It wasn't extreme, just like a punch on the shoulder, a flick on my ear, the usual bully stuff. This continued for weeks, and I was afraid to take any action as I was afraid that it would just get worse. I was very non-confrontational at the time. Eventually, they decided they'd gotten bored of messing with me and decided to take it to the next level by physically harming me. They'd shove me to the ground and kick me, smash me against my car and mess with my stuff. Once they nearly even broke my arm. I was done with these guys, but still too fearful of them to take action. So I let it continue. Big mistake. Apparently, I wasn't enough for them, so they started targeting my family. I don't know how, but they got my brother and mother's phone number and started calling and harassing them, using one of those apps which allows you to have a random, anonymous phone number and being all around jerks. This infuriated me a lot, but I kept my cool thinking that they would just get bored of me and move on. They didn't. My brother, who was at the same college I graduated from, was about 4 years younger than me, so about 18 at the time. He was exactly like me, non-confrontational and shy, which made these jerks think that they could have a piss at him to get to me. One day, my mother got a phone call, telling her that my brother was in the ER as he had a broken collarbone, broken arm, and a fractured hip. They told her that he had told them that he slipped and fell down the stairs. I knew from the start that this was nonsense. He wasn't allowed to walk for a full month, as doctors said it could cause the fracture to extend and worsen the situation. So here my brother was, stuck in a wheelchair for about a month because he slipped and fell down the stairs. I went and confronted him about this, and after I applied some pressure, he broke. He started crying uncontrollably and told me it was the same dudes who had been harassing me for the past month. Furthermore, my mother went into mild depression because of the whole ordeal. Everyone has their limits, and they have just crossed mine. This is the point where hell unleashes. I, through some friends, got the number of one of the dude's girlfriends, who by the way was completely oblivious to the fact that her boyfriend was a sadistic bully, and after explaining the situation to her, got her in on my plan. I got her to give me his address, as this was crucial to my revenge. My family members were devastated at the news of my brother, and after explaining the whole ordeal to my two older cousins who were both Taekwondo black belts, they were also in on my plan. I was going to annihilate him, physically and emotionally. 2 days before the college finals week, I went to his house and rang the doorbell. He saw me and instantly started grinning. I told him I wanted to fight, and he started laughing hard. He told me I should go home and try not to embarrass myself, but I was persistent. He followed me outside, and we went to a nearby abandoned school, which was about a minute away from his house. The whole time he was taunting me about how I was going to suffer and how great he was. We reached the field and my two cousins came out in their Taekwondo gear looking intimidating as hell. His attitude and facial expression completely changed. He started complaining about how it wasn't fair and that it was 3 against 1. I told him that the fact that he had assaulted my brother and caused him to not be able to walk was not fair and told him that he was going to regret that decision. Before he could respond, one of my cousins came running up from behind him and did some sort of move, kicking him brutally in the head. He fell to the ground and his head started bleeding. I could hear him whimpering on the ground, but I was merciless. I signaled to my other cousin to have at him, and he did. It was beautiful. Every kick to the stomach, every punch to the head, his bleeding body lying in the ground, watching him suffer after what he put me and my family through. Eventually, we stopped attacking him after we realized he was unconscious and started to get a little worried. I called his girlfriend and she called, and she came and put him in her car with the help of my cousins and took him to the hospital. I don't know all the details of his injuries, but he was hospitalized for a month and a half. He ended up missing finals week, having his girlfriend break up with him and having his entire family condemn his actions after I informed them of what he had done. He was also left with a permanently disfigured face. He had to have plastic surgery for all his facial injuries, and the surgery botched the job, and now his face is permanently disfigured. I didn't get away with it completely though. His family pressed charges, and I was arrested for assault and was jailed for 6 months with some pretty hefty fines, but it was worth it. The other bullies stayed away from me and my brother ever since then, and we have gotten on with our lives. I feel like the satisfaction of vengeance was worth the 6 months in jail. Edit. At the start I say I have one brother, and when we attack the guy at the field, I refer to my male cousin as my brother. I fixed the error in the story, but this is just to inform that when I said my other brother, I meant my cousin. Story 3. This happened a few years ago, but after working over 10 years in retail, starting while I was 16 to save for college and amenities, I've run into many Karens. But this one particular lady still gives me flashbacks. This is a long one, but I promise, just the absolute entitlement of this woman is worth it. I was 23 at the time. I had been working at 7-Eleven. My coworker, we shall call her Liz, was working with me. This particular day was July 11th. If you've ever gone to or worked for 7-Eleven on that day, you know that July 11th, 7-Eleven's is their promotional day. Some predetermined amount of child-sized Slurpees are given away for free. It would depend on the amount of guests. Some years it was universal across the board. Usually 100-200-ish free child-sized Slurpees. These were often all claimed by 12 p.m. at our location. It was now roughly 7 p.m. We hadn't had anyone come in for a few hours asking about the promotion. But it was busy with regular customers as it was hot and gas was cheap. Our location had an attached gas bar. A lady, about 40, came in with a Chihuahua Russell mixed dog. At first I ignored it until she set the dog down and it began to charge other customers, trying to bite, and was growling and barking. Truthfully, I almost always ignored patrons with small dogs they could carry. They were generally always well behaved, and there wasn't a spot to tie them up outside. So, if I didn't hear the dog, I didn't mention the dog. But this lady had no control of her animal, and the situation was fast becoming a liability. At which point, while keeping a distance, I told her she can't have the dog in the store as its behavior was a liability for both of us. She began to proclaim she knew her rights and the law and the dog was allowed. I asked her if the dog was a service animal or an emotional support animal. No, but it's my dog. I can have my dog in here. She was getting visibly annoyed, and after some back and forth she walked her dog to the front door and threw it out the door on the pavement near a man she must have been accompanied with. And when I say threw, I mean threw. This dog was thrown 5 feet to the pavement and bounced off, before walking off to the side of the man waiting outside. That there let me know that this woman was going to be a handful. After she had hurled her dog to the pavement, she came back into the store and selected a few items. 2 Coca-Cola cans, some candies, and she wanted hot food. "I want a free Slurpee," she loudly said, looking around at other patrons as if to elicit attention to herself. I calmly expressed it was promotional, and we ran out of the promotional cups and began to ring her items through. I couldn't give her a free one if I wanted to, as regular cups were counted as inventory. However, this was the complete undoing. I heard her call me a witch under her breath. For the most part I ignored it. Over and over she squealed about a free Slurpee, how I was ripping her off, etc., etc. I was about to get her hot food when she reached over the counter and went, "You must be proud of yourself. Kicking out a dog. Look at your face. Your mother probably never wanted you. You should have been aborted. You're a screw-up. That's why you work here, you miserable dumb jerk." At this point she was loud and 10+ other customers were shaking their heads. I suspended the transaction and told her to leave. I was just beyond fed up. "You have to serve me," she shrieked. "No, I don't. You're being hostile and I won't be abused. Please go or I'll call the police. You're unwelcome." I turned my back, set her items behind the register, and hoped she'd just go if I ignored her. "It's my right. Give me my stuff," she repeated over and over again. She continued to hurl insults at me. Then she began to insult other customers. She was becoming so hostile that I had already called the police. She was approaching customers trying to explain herself, and when they ignored her, she was cursing them as she did me. I told her over and over to go. She can't abuse my paying customers, and she was unwelcome. Each request to leave was met with obscene insults and cussing. One man had enough and forced her out of the store. Just walking into her, she finally left the store. I thought, finally, what an entitled idiot. About a minute goes by and my coworker and I are trying to ring through more people. She comes back into the store. I've finally had enough of this. As soon as she opens the door, I yell, "No, get out. You're not allowed in here. You need to go." She comes charging up to the counter, knocking over displays, and is yelling absolute nonsense. Mostly cussing, telling me it's a public space, she can be here. This went on for another 5 minutes. My coworker, Liz, a French native, tells her to go. She's normally shy and quiet, the type who avoids any confrontation. I was shocked she even spoke up. She mistakes Liz as Middle Eastern, mocks an accent, and begins to tell her to go back to her own country, telling her no one wants to be blown up. Calls her fat, while throwing more merchandise to the ground. Liz laughs in her face and simply just says she's being obnoxious and racist and she needs to go. She asks for my name. I give it to her. I gave her our corporate number. Tell her this entire thing was on camera, and she can call all she wants. My patience has hit rock bottom, and every other word from my mouth is, "Lady, you need to leave." The man from before, finally annoyed, yells at this lady, tells her to go, or he will make her go. This is finally what makes this lady leave. She speeds through the parking lot, laying on the horn, and goes, freaking finally. I call my boss because I know Karen is going to complain, and I tell her what happened. I thought this was the end of this. A day later I'm called in. Ah, here we go. Complaint from Karen. The complaint stated I threatened to beat her up over her service dog. She is a frail old lady, and I came out of the store and threatened to key her car. I swore at her, embarrassed her, threw merchandise at her, and I should be fired or she will seek further legal action. This complaint was so far from the truth, I was actually laughing in front of my bosses who were stone-faced, believing this woman and thinking they were about to be sued. Of course, given the circumstances of the allegations, this went to legal and other managers above us. Finally, a few days later, after reviewing footage and even customers who called in to talk to my manager about being verbally abused by this lady themselves, they finally tell this lady that she is unwelcome here and she will have a no trespass order placed. I was within my rights as an employee, and they told her, "Your complaint was bogus. We checked the cameras." My district manager even apologized to me. I thought, wow, what a disaster. But I'm glad I prevailed. That has to be the end. Nah, of course not. For over 2.5 months after, Karen had her friends come into the store with dogs, all to elicit a reaction. They'd come in and say, "I saw the sign, but can I have him in here?" Of course, they weren't allowed. They know this, and Karen was waiting outside for a reaction. When I informed my boss of this, she checked the cameras and confirmed it was Karen from earlier trying to provoke me, and had her criminally charged with trespassing. That was finally the end of the entire ordeal. So yeah, be careful when trying to make sure your customers don't get bit from Karen's Chihuahua. She will try to have you fired. Story 4. On Saturday last week, young musicians had the opportunity to earn badges, bronze and silver. Both me and the Karen took an exam each. I did silver and she did bronze. I did not see her there, not that I expected it, since my exam was in the afternoon and hers was at 8 o'clock in the morning or something. Later in the evening, our youth leader approached me and congratulated me for passing with a very good score, and asked me if I knew something about Karen's grade. I told him I didn't, and he looked at me with a frown. This is what he said to me. "Youth leader, you know, normally, all the people competing call me afterwards, but since I know you don't like to call, I thought I'd just ask you now." Karen's teacher told me over and over again that she would not sign the form needed to enter, but in the end, her mother made her do it. She gave in, so I was very curious if she passed or not. I was skeptical as to why he would tell me that, but I didn't give it any more thoughts and enjoyed my evening. On Wednesday, yesterday to be exact, I went to rehearsal for the concert we have on Friday. I had my earphones plugged in, which I normally don't do, but the moment I entered the rehearsal room, everyone went quiet immediately. It took me a minute to actually notice and look up. I asked them why they were staring at me like that when our chairman approached me and put a hand on my shoulder. Me? Did someone die? Seriously, that was the first thing that came to my mind. Chairman? No, it's just Karen and her entitled mother are here. Why? He sighed really heavily, and everyone else pretended to be really busy, but I know they eavesdropped. Incorrigible gossip. You know, since Karen passed the exam on Saturday and now has the bronze badge, her mother wanted her to join the concert band again. I know what you want to say, but we don't want to start a war or something like that. They are currently discussing matters with our band director, but I wanted to talk to you first since they harassed you during the last few rehearsals before the Easter concert. So, what do you say? I was never fond of the idea of her joining, and I am still not happy about how things have been. Earning a badge doesn't naturally make her a better flutist and much less a better person. But if she's willing to learn and take advice if someone tells her she's wrong, I will not make a fuss about it. Thank you so much. I owe you something. Not really happy about that news, I sat down on my chair and started preparing by playing a piece that was lying around. I did my part with scales. I hate them and never want to play them again. I managed to play 5 notes when our band director, the entitled mother and Karen, exit the conference room, and I immediately feel the entitled mother's hateful stare on me. Unfortunately, my 2 friends couldn't make it to rehearsal that day, leaving me completely on my own. Band director. Ah, you're already here. Good. I guess you and the chairman already discussed matters. I just nodded. Band director. Well, I tried to reason with those 2 for the last 30 minutes. Listen, the entitled mother is convinced that Karen deserves to play first chair since she did so well in the exam on Saturday. Which was a lie, by the way. She barely passed. Don't worry, you don't have to give up your parts nor your chair, but I have to ask you both to play a piece at the end of rehearsal to see who deserves to have the first chair. Is that all right for you? I was already laughing inside because I know this will go on Reddit. Of course, no problem. There you have it. My daughter plays so much better than you, and she will prove it later on. I hope you're the one who will get kicked out then. My daughter didn't deserve to be treated like that. Yeah, whatever. Leave me alone. To prevent the entitled mother from harassing me again, the band director told her to go and come back and later to listen to her daughter if she insisted. She left with a smug grin, but I was already done with her nonsense and just wanted to get this over with. During the rehearsal, she played as bad as usual. It was a tragedy, honestly. My heart hurts when someone mistreats an instrument like that. We also played the piece with my solo part, and she had the audacity to play along. The band director told her off and started over, much to everyone's amusement. After nearly 2 hours of me resisting the urge to strangle Karen, it was finally over. Just as the band director handed us the sheet we would be playing from, the entitled mother came back with the smuggest look on her face. Band director, all right, who wants to begin? Entitled mother, I think she should begin since she thinks she can beat my daughter. So my dear daughter can show everyone just how amazing she is in comparison to you. If that's what you want. So, I started playing. The piece was not specifically hard, and I've played it before a few times, but the part for solo flute is very tricky if you don't know how to play certain notes. And don't ask me what it's called. The title was cut off, and I honestly don't remember the composer. But overall, it is a regular silver-leveled piece. And that level is required as a first chair player. Yes, I did make my silver badge only last week, but I proved my skills and everyone was okay with me being first chair. After I finished, it was Karen's turn. But before she could start, the entitled mother demanded my flute. Again. Entitled mother, you should let my baby play on your flute to make it fair. What? No. But your flute is a better one and has a better sound. If she plays with her one, she will sound less good, and that would be unfair. Give her your flute. I told you once and I'll tell you again, keep your hands off my flute. Buy her a better one if you think that's the problem. And if you try to grab it, I will hurt you. I kept my flute in my hands and glared at the entitled mother, and before she could say anything else, the band director told Karen to start playing. And, what shall I say? I wished I had recorded that. Those were the most embarrassing 5 minutes in my entire life. Karen made a complete and utter fool of herself, trying to finger her way through all those parts, not managing to get a single note right. She was completely out of tune as always. She missed the B flat all the time, playing B instead, and she ruined the solo part like a champion. Really, it requires skill to mess up like that. After she ended, her mother jumped from her chair and ran to her daughter. My baby was just nervous. She plays much better when she isn't put in a situation like that. This wasn't nervousness. She just proved that she doesn't belong in a concert band. Internally, I thought, she just proved that she should never touch a flute again. The entitled mother starts whining like a 5-year-old. This is not fair. They were not playing under the same conditions. My daughter is a much better player than she is, she points at me. I demand that my daughter gets the first chair immediately. The band director was like 100% done with her. Of course they were not playing under the same conditions. She is double her age and has so much more experience. There is a reason why she has the silver badge now. Please, just leave. And never ask for her to come back. We've heard everything we needed. And don't ever harass this lady here again. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how I got rid of Karen and her daughter. Story 5. A while back, I was working in an office that allowed dogs. It was an open floor plan, and since customers never came into the office, we kept the dogs' food and water bowls right by the front door, just because it was the most convenient space and no one else would see them but us who worked there. Of the 6 of us who worked in the main office area, I was the only one who didn't have a dog no pets policy at the apartment and always felt horribly left out. To make matters worse, across the way was a doggy daycare. One day a very frantic woman came in and she had an absolutely massive basset hound with her. Usually the only people who came into the office were associates who had appointments with someone working there, but it was rare they brought their dogs. She ran up to me and said, "Do you work here?" And I said, "Yes, how can I help you?" And she said, "I wasn't sure if you took walk-ins, but I read online I could just drop him off." I tried to call but no answer. I didn't know what she was talking about at that point, and I said, "Come again. Who did you call exactly?" Thinking if I could just saddle her off to whoever she came to see, I wouldn't have to decipher her problem. She said, "Well, it doesn't matter now. Look, something urgent has come up, and I really need to leave him here. Here's his food he likes, and I'll be back in a few hours," and at this point I wasn't thinking of the doggy daycare. I thought maybe she was a friend of someone here. I said, "Well, all right, can I get your name, please?" And she said her name and then asked if I needed her to sign anything, and I was so confused at this point I just said, "Why would I need you to sign something?" And she left almost immediately. So I took Otis the dog to the back and showed him to my coworkers, and no one knew the woman or dog. I was worried she wouldn't come back, but at the same time, my wish for an office dog had been granted, and Otis was supremely chill. All he did all day was lie around and drool onto his own ears. I just freshened him up every now and then, took him out every couple hours, and he was happy as a clam on a big cushy dog bed we thankfully had an extra of. He just loved attention from anywhere he could get it. At the end of the day, the woman, thank God, came back. She said, "Thanks, you're a lifesaver. How was he?" And I said, "He was a champ." And was about to say, "But why is he here?" when she said, "That's a relief. Most kennels say he gets anxious around other dogs. I heard you operated at a much higher capacity. I was thrilled to see you had so few clients in the room at one time. So, how much do I owe?" And that's when I realized she thought we were a dog daycare. Now, I probably should have corrected her. But I loved my day with the office dog, and I did want to get paid for supervising this strange dog all day. I just threw out the number that sounded fair and appropriate. "That'll be $20, I said. She replied, "Really?" in this very high tone, and I couldn't tell if I'd overshot or undershot. But she paid me and left. My coworkers were laughing hysterically when they realized what had happened, and we thought it would just be a good story for the future. But the next week, she came back. She said we were so much more affordable and less overcrowded than her other place that she was happy to use us. I was glad for the company, so I just took him. I didn't think there was any way she couldn't have at least some idea we weren't a dog daycare. The whole ordeal was so strange, I just figured, don't question a good thing. I was much younger and dumber then. Not long after, Otis started getting dropped off too, sometimes even 3 or 4 days a week. I was in heaven. He was such a love, and he made fast friends with the delivery guys and visitors. One day we took our office Christmas card photo and Otis was over that day, so we included him. In a Santa hat. It was pretty great. But it turns out Otis' owner was friends with one of our clients who I guess happened to have the card out on her table or was kind enough to display it alongside her other holiday cards. Because one day Otis' owner came in holding the card and walked up to me and said, "I can't even believe I'm asking this, but is that my dog in this photo? This isn't a dog daycare at all. This is just an office, isn't it?" She said it with a note of surprise, as though she was looking around and putting it all together for the first time. No coincidence that this was the first time she wasn't in some crazy rush either. She was like, "Then who are all these other dogs?" And I explained. I was terrified she was going to demand her money back, or worse, take some sort of legal action against us for misrepresenting ourselves as a dog care business, or complain to the corporate. Instead, she basically said, "Why didn't you ever say anything?" And I explained we just really liked having Otis around. She stopped for a minute and seemed to be thinking and said, "Is that right?" And I said yes and told the story of how I was the only one in the office without a dog so loved the company. She seemed a little flummoxed or hesitant, understandably, because the whole thing was so weird. She turned to my coworker and asked if I was telling the whole truth. I don't know why she thought my coworker, also a stranger to her, was any more trustworthy than me. But hey, strange times. Coworker backed me up. So she said, "Well, I wish you'd said something sooner. Could have saved me a lot of embarrassment with my friend back there. All right, I have to get going. See you at 4 o'clock." And she left Otis. I couldn't believe it. I said, "So he can stay," and she replied, "Where else could I find someone to watch him one-on-one all day for $20? And off she went. Otis stayed my office dog until his family moved away. Luckily, right around the same time, I took a new job. With all this time sitting around doing nothing, I thought it was as good a time as any to tell that story.